This is Derek O'Fodernwell with The Medicine Show, and today I'm going to discuss more on Igbo spirituality, what more is and its function within you and around you, how to interact and connect with this force, and why it's important to see and understand this aspect of life and self on a practical level. In this video, I'll also explain music and art as medicine, and the ancestral understanding of the trance state, entering and inducing self-trance, and masquerades from the ancestral point of view. And to bring it together and show why this matters on a personal level, at the end of the video, I will interpret the meaning of the proverb, "Ndị mmadụ amadị na mmiri nwere ọkpụkpụ, mana ndị mmadụ ana-ata mmiri ata." In my Chi Explained video, I started with a hypothetical question, and I wanted to see if I can do that for this one as well. In that video, I asked, if an artist is drawing a model, what is the Chi of the picture that is produced? I really liked reading the answers, and since Mo is one of the 4 building blocks that make all things, like the Chi, I want to rephrase that question for this video. So leave your answers in the comment below. There's no right or wrong answer. But for this video, I want to ask, if an artist is drawing a picture of a model, what is the more of the situation? Is it the model? Is it the picture? Is it the artist? Or is it something else? Comment below with your answer. I personally think this one's more difficult than answering what is the Chi, so I'm interested in seeing the different perspectives you guys have to offer. If you're new to this channel, I discuss Igbo spirituality. If you're interested in this topic, subscribe and make sure you hit the bell icon so that you get notifications on new videos. As I said, I discuss Igbo spirituality, cosmology, and culture. And if there's any topics you're interested in, or anything I mentioned in this video that you want me to elaborate on, comment below and let me know. The best way to support this channel is by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/themedicineshow. All of my patrons have full access to my research library, where I get my information from. It has hundreds of ebooks, articles, studies, and first-hand historical sources on Igbo spirituality, culture, and history. We also have an Odinani study group, which is a live discussion on various topics. And for the higher tier patrons, there is an in-house Dibia for individuals that are interested in one-on-one readings, therapy, and consultation. I've had a few patrons report back to me on how things were going after working with him, and everyone's been very happy with the results and personal clarity they've achieved. So join at patreon.com/themedicineshow. And with that being said, let's begin. More is the self-observing principle that makes an individual whole, an ethereal self that manifests with you upon creation and tethers you into existence. Without more, there is no you. This essence of an individual works similar to a cosmic song, with your conception as the first note. Everything that you are, mean, your wisdom, truth, your principles, the right and wrong doings you do on earth, everything you become, experience, witness, feel, stand for, embrace, all play as separate sounds that make this song whole. The sum total of you upon death and in life, which stands as a capsule of you and your essence. It is also your spiritual force or your spiritual presence, the foot that you place in the world of the unliving and unseen, the self that operates in and as in existence. And I will elaborate on why I choose song or music as my preferred analogy for describing more shortly. But like song, more is the unseen which influences the seen, or the intangible that makes the tangible whole. The concept of more and everything it takes to understand it is one of the most complex bodies of knowledge and ancestral wisdom. Understanding more in itself is a whole science, which takes years, if not a lifetime, to fully grasp. But there are individuals among us who understand the concept to the point of being able to engineer it, or work within its vast array of attributes. And I'll discuss these people and how this is done towards the end of the video. In our ancestral worldview, an individual exists as 2 things, Madu na Mo, the self and the self-observer. In some diasporic traditions, such as Rastafari, the concept is articulated as I and I, and even in the English language, there's the concept of myself, implying a self and a self that possesses that self. In a way, an individual can say my home or my bag. This is also expressed in the Igbo phrase Muno Wem, I and myself, or literally translating to I and myself owner. Madu is made real by Mo and Mo made real by Madu, as both essences must reflect their nature upon each other in order for either to become a reality. Meaning that Mo influences Madu as much as Madu influences Mo. Mo is therefore an integral part of you as a reality, more so than a shadow self, and both Madu and Mo share the steering wheel of the vehicle that you are as a left and a right hand, rather than a driver and a passenger. In fact, very literally, the word right hand in the Igbo language is akanri, the food hand, while the left hand is referred to as aketwe, the spirit hand. When dealing with Mo, such as ancestors or the dead, an individual uses the left hand to greet and hand things over. And this concept is articulated in diaspora-based traditions, such as Hoodoo, where spiritual work is often referred to as left-hand work. while an individual engaging the living will use their right hand to also hand things over, point, or greet. And that's why in Igbo culture today, if you hand an elder something with your left hand, you're liable to receive an insult because you're more or less engaging with them as if they're a dead person. One way of understanding how your self-observer is active in materializing you as a person is in the example of the cup. A cup has a material outside shell and an immaterial inner emptiness. The material outer shell serves to make the immaterial center exist. It is a partial enclosing of nothingness with a cylinder of somethingness that allows a cup to be a cup. And because the somethingness is shaped in a cylinder, the nothingness within is also reflective of that shape. While at the same time, because we wanted to make a cylinder of nothingness tangible, we shaped the cup into the shape of a cylinder, as we often shape the shells of various objects such as fish bowls or boxes based on the shape that we want the intangible within to take. And so the emptiness at the center is shaped by the somethingness of the outside, the same way the somethingness of the outside is shaped by the emptiness of the center in the example of the cup. And like the emptiness of the center, more then works to take in and retain everything that is you, meaning that your experiences, what you witness, who you are, who you become, the company you keep, your emotions and the emotions of the people around you, what you learn, your achievements and failures, and what you do, personality, principles, and habits, all serve as different liquids that mix in as ingredients within more to make you. And without that empty center, the cup cannot take these things in. And so when all of these factors work in conjunction, you become a reality or a unique unit in creation. Moi is therefore the element of you that retains experience, and the collection of experience retained by this soul force is what we eventually call life. The moi of anything that supersedes humanity is known as Abara. Abara is the self-observer or the soul force of elements of nature such as earth, sky, water, wind, moon, and sun. Today we call them Arushi, but the proper term when speaking about these forces is Abara, as the Arushi is the device, location, or shrine used to channel the Abara and interface with the spirit. An example of this is using the phone to talk to somebody. Now, if somebody had never seen a phone before or doesn't understand how a phone works, they may think you are literally talking to the phone, which in this case would be the Arushi, whereas you're speaking to somebody far beyond reach, touch, and sight using the phone, a device designed to make this possible. And in this case, that individual would be the Abara. Among the Abara, or soul forces of the elements of nature, there's Ana, the Abara of earth, Nemiri or Oshimiri, the Abara of the waters, Ekwensu, the warrior Abara, Onwa, the Abara of the moon, and Agun, the Abara of universal or divine wisdom. The 6 I listed are the ones I've made videos for, and if you're interested in learning about them on an individual basis, I'll add links to their videos below. I think there's a little confusion on the role Abara or Arushi play for practitioners, so I want to help to make things clear. 90% of people have no real business dealing with Arushi. And this is how it was traditionally as well. On the level of spirituality, what matters most is your God and your ancestors. Arushi exists primarily for communal purposes, such as settling disputes, creating or enforcing laws, retaining communal order, or protecting a community. And if they do interface with an individual, it's usually more of a calling than something the average person is supposed to know. So, for example, an Abara may choose you for a certain mission, such as becoming a healer, which is what happens with Dibias, or delivering a message to others, such as a prophecy or a vision. Or you can go to one if you need extraordinary intervention when all other options have been exhausted. So, for example, if you're going to war, you may call on Amadioha, Ojuku, or Ekwensu, or others of that nature. But people on a day-to-day basis don't pray to or worship Arushi, which the name of the gods, which is often used for them, would imply. It's normal to give thanks and acknowledgement to them once you understand your path and the role they played in making it happen. Individuals who feel that their gifts and arts come from the waters may go to the waters and give thanks, for example. When I do my morning communion, I acknowledge Agune Dumendinkuzi, which is Agun that keeps the teachers. A title that I made up upon realizing that my path in this world, or my chi, brought me into this world to be a teacher. But again, for everybody, Igbo spirituality is about your chi and your ancestors. There's a video on YouTube where Adibia says that any question you ask an Arushi, the Arushi will ask your chi. I'll link it below because he had a lot of very interesting things to say. Each Abara has a specific power domain or domain of attributes that can be channeled for specific purposes. Their existence also impacts our lives in ways unique to each one. Both Mo, the soul forces of living things such as people, and Abara, the soul force of elements of nature, can be accessed and utilized for personal and social purposes, using specific rituals, medicines, ceremonies, or even by entering trances, an interface method which I'll discuss the details of towards the end of the video. In the ancestral worldview, all happenings have causation. All things have a pattern, a reasoning, or a cycle. Causations and patterns that are visible to us are understood as natural phenomena. They are logical, measurable, and can be easily explained through observation and examination, while the causations and patterns that are not visible to us or understood by the Ofeke or the spiritually blind layperson is seen as chaos. Unseen causation gives the average person the sense that there are events in the universe that happen at random without order or precedent, and this is encapsulated in concepts such as luck, chaos, irrationality, supernatural phenomena, randomness, or unpredictability. In the ancestral worldview, these concepts do not exist. In Igbo culture, there's a proverb that says, if you see a person dancing above water, something beneath is playing the tune, meaning that for everything strange, out of place, or random we observe in the tangible section of existence, there's a force, pattern, or rhythm causing it in the intangible section of existence, or that what you see is best explained by what you don't see. The unseen world beyond what is observable to the untrained perceiver is known as Alam Mo. Alam Mo is the collective of unseen existence, the collective Mo of all forces living and dead, as Alam Madum is the collective seen existence, or the world of the living, as Alam Madu is the collective, perceivable existence, or the world of the living that we occupy as mortal beings. In Alam Madu, there's an uncountable number of events, patterns, and actions that we undertake to create specific results that are easily seen and understood upon examination. And this principle applies for Alam Mo, as both worlds reflect and affect each other. Alam Madu is not fully understood without taking a look into the happenings and pattern in Alam Mo. Adibia signifies the ability to see into both worlds by painting a strip or ring of white around the eyes to signify full awakeness. There are individuals who are born with gifts that allow them to see and sense the events and presence of Alam Mo more than the average person. Though all people are able to peer into or feel the unseen, the ability to do so exists on a spectrum for different people, and one who is particularly gifted in this space is believed to be a natural dibia, or an Eze Mo, which is a spiritualist or an authority on Mo and Alam Mo. For individuals with this gift, Inragon, or Dibia initiation, allows them to make peace with the gift and bring it under their control, beginning the journey of mastery, and in the best case scenario, using it as an asset for helping and blessing others. As a symbol to represent the ability to see both worlds, the dog is seen as the symbol of the dibia, or the animal manifestation of the dibia. A dog can sense the intentions of individuals when they enter the room, before the individual makes the intention visible. A dog can sense the character of an individual before it's obvious. If a dog's owner is in harm's way, miles away from where the dog stands, the dog will react. When a dog's owner is nervous, the dog becomes nervous or alert without being instructed to do so. And these are examples of being extremely in tune with Alam Mo, which makes the dog and Dibia manifestations of each other. If you're interested in other sacred animals or the spiritual context of various animals, according to our ancestors, comment below. I can do a video on that topic. But Mo, or access to Alam Mo, is not exclusive to human beings or animals, as trees and natural features such as sky and earth and communities all have their own Mo, and even more abstract concepts such as words, sounds, or moments, as all things that exist in two forms. Another thing that is important to share about the nature of Mo is the fact that it is timeless. Unlike Madu, Mo does not operate in finite time. It is in the past, present, and future at once, making the realm it exists within, Alam Mo, fundamentally different from the physical realm of Alam Madu. Mo, as a result, is chronologically omnipresent, existing without space and time, meaning that your Mo exists everywhere that you have been, touches everything that you have touched all at once, witnesses and feels everything you have witnessed and felt. And if Mo could be seen, it would exist as a chain of you, with each one standing as a snapshot of something you have done or did at a time that it was taken, similar to an Egerton photograph, where light captures the sequence of motion, but extending from the beginning of your existence until the end. For this reason, places where individuals visited in their lifetime are important in channeling their Mo. Individuals will feel Mo when they walk the pathways of their ancestors, or visit the places their ancestors had visited, even utilizing the objects their ancestors had utilized. This very concept is core as to why rituals, dances, and songs manifest the way they do in our culture. Many masquerades will walk the path of the ancestor or spirit which possesses the person in the suit. From this, masquerade patterns such as which villages display masquerades before the other, or where masquerades go, is key to illustrating the history of a community, or migration patterns, or even the spread of the specific masquerade tradition, because these patterns are symbolic to historic events and the pathways of the spirits they venerate. From the perspective of Alam Madu, the nature of Alam Mo appears cyclical, with almost everything done to contact Mo requiring repetition in order to sync the method with the soul force. And our ancestors represented and taught the nature of Mo through music, specifically the sacred art of Ogene music. The Ogene is a two-pronged bell that served an ancestral society in an array of ways. One of the ways was in calling, contacting, or speaking to Mo, as the skilled player is able to simulate the Igbo language through mastery of the diverse tonalities achieved by striking different parts of the instrument. Each of the two bells themselves represents Mado and Mo, with both halves dedicated to a different sphere of existence respectively, and with the shape of the combined bell being a symbol for life, which is often seen in temples, shrines, and art. In Ogene music, the tune begins with the playing of the Ogene, and then one by one the other instruments join in, syncing with the pattern led by the Ogene, until the song comes together. Each sound or instrument in the ensemble carries its own spiritual symbolism or representation, and when it's all put together, it creates a music capable of summoning and pacifying Mo, uniting the people with the spirits of the land. Also common is the use of the Ogene before communion with the ancestral forces or the forces of Alam Mo. Individuals may begin and end communion or prayers by striking the bell as to summon the spirits and welcome their presence. The use of bells in masquerade costumes and even the anklets of dancers also serves the same purpose. And you will see as a universal principle, when engaging with spirits, that bells are often the go-to for commencing a conversation, welcoming and invoking their presence, as well as warding off rejected or unwanted spirits, which is also common with the Ogene. In holy institutions across the world, the theme is consistent, be they Shinto shrines, church or Christmas bells, Native American wind chimes, or the bells in Hindu temples, as a few examples among many. I personally use a sake bottle to the same effect. In Odinala Ndibo, the calling of a spirit begins with the use of the spirit's name, as Mo is a capsule of an individual. Like Madu, an individual knows when they are being called when their name is used. Individuals know that messages are for them when they hear their name, and even in the afterlife, it is the key to unlocking their attention. And this is why the first step that'll be asked of anyone who is interested in connecting with their ancestors is to go and learn their names through learning their family history, and to use their names specifically when they're calling them. For ancestors whose names cannot be recalled, the names Eke, Orie, Afo, and Nkwo will suffice, as the day a person is born is also one of their names. Ancestors are often called upon because the Mo in your presence will sync with your own. For this reason, ancestors are called upon often based on the attributes of their character as people. On a day-to-day example, if you're in high spirits and enter a room of individuals in low spirits, if you're not consciously maintaining your own spirit, it will decrease to match their own, while theirs will increase to match yours until everybody sinks somewhere in the middle. For this reason, the presence of an unhappy person can spread unhappiness into a happier person, while the happiness of the other individual can brighten the disposition of the unhappy person a little more. In this way, peaceful ancestors can spread the spirit of peace when invoked. Combative ancestors can spread a fighting spirit. Giving ancestors may invoke generosity, and the unfulfilled wishes of ancestors can become a personal mission for an individual who establishes a relationship with the ancestor. Because Mo manifests as influence, what the influence causes an individual to do is what determines the difference between good and bad Mo. Adron Mo is Mo designated as bad, from the perspective of the individual giving it the name. Often Adron Mo is a spirit or class of spirits with unfinished business on earth. Spirits of individuals known for wickedness and greed, or people who pass with unresolved grudges, who will often disturb the lives of the living until they receive restitution. From this and for many other reasons, Igbo cosmology places a great deal of focus on the idea of being at peace with spirits, or at peace with the spirits of any land an individual finds himself in. As often, these disturbances can simply be Mo trying to get your attention, very often to provide you with guidance, or a higher state of realization. And therefore, individuals open pathways of communication by acknowledging the spirits regularly. This is done by praying for the well-being of the living and the dead, or greeting the spirits under the title Ndim Mo when holding communion. with the ancestors and elements of creation. It is common to throw a little bit of what you're communing with, such as a small piece of nzu or kola, over the shoulder to acknowledge Ndimmo, most specifically the unnamed spirits, and thereby signaling a desire for peace. And opening these paths of communication allow messages to come through in appropriate channels, such as dreams and signs, rather than calamity or unforeseen events. On the other side of the coin, more that influences towards greatness and the proliferation of life, abundance, and peace is celebrated by families and communities, as that which is celebrated is that which is welcome to continue. For this reason, communities hold celebrations for people whose more they wish to retain, for influence, guidance, and protection. Maun was one of hundreds of masquerades specifically designed for honoring men of the past. As a conduit for channeling the presence of an ancestor, Maun comes alive and walks through the community as the honored man, walking his ancestral paths and sharing proverbs and poetry known as Mbem. To honor an ancestor in this way, the family will purchase and activate Maun. In this process, a physical home is given or built for the masquerade, and it is also given a human wife, meaning that somebody must marry the masquerade to make it official. Once the Maun has been established, when its time to emerge comes, a Dibia Maun from the masquerade society that controls the masquerade will summon the spirit of the ancestor through an induction of a trance known as Igon Mo. Before wearing the masquerade, the dancer who does the performance will perform a ceremony known as Igon Mo. Igon Mo is the process necessary for an individual to reach a state of ego death and enter a trance that allows the Mo channeled by the Maun to enter and possess that person for the duration of the Maun's walk across the community. During Igon Mo, the individual turns off the self and taps further into Mo, allowing themselves to fuse with the Mo of the ancestor. This requires extreme discipline and control of one's consciousness. And for this reason, masquerade dancers go through extensive periods of fasting, isolation, and ritual. And many masquerade societies train dancers from a young age in the ability of achieving self-induced trance, if it is not natural to the person from birth, as this art requires self-mastery and the ability to silence the mind and the ego. It is important to distinguish the difference between trance, or Igon Mo, and meditation, which is Igochi. Igon Mo is a complete detachment of the consciousness, whereas Igochi, or meditation, is a complete immersion into the consciousness. Igochi allows an individual to realize themselves more, whereas Igon Mo focuses on shedding the self to sync with something beyond. Igon Mo is also used when entering title societies. Before a man can earn the title of Ozo in his community, he must sit in a room known as Akun Ozo for 7 market weeks, or 28 days, the same amount of time it takes an egg to incubate and hatch. In this time, he'll only be visited by his wife, who will provide minimal food and sustenance for the fast. And when the individual emerges, he is a new person, embodying the principles of the title in the society, and reaching the highest pinnacle of self-achievement in the societies that have the Ozo title, which is notoriously difficult to attain. In Igbo land, one of the most popular forms of entertainment is the Atilogo dance. The Atilogo dancers have achieved worldwide fame for their extreme levels of acrobatics, balance, and strength, which often involves forming human trees out of their bodies. Now, the story behind the dance is very interesting. The founder of the dance was said to have sought a new form of dancing that would be greater than anything anybody has ever seen. And he felt he can do this by climbing a tree. Once he reached the obi of the tree, or the nest of the tree, where the branches begin separating from, he stayed up there for several days without moving. It is said that after a few days, it induced a trance, which caused him to stand on a single branch and stiffen his body, becoming one with the tree itself. Once he was one and tapped into the more of the tree, it showed him how to perform the dance and how to achieve a level of balance unknown until that day. When he came down from the tree, he shared his new technique with the people. Until this day, the Atilogo dance displays the knowledge he received from tapping into the tree. The Atilogo dance grew in popularity and spread to neighboring villages, and today holds a UNESCO World Heritage Award as a definitive achievement in world culture. And that's it. Before I share why it is important for an individual to know everything that I shared in this video, I want to go ahead and give my shout outs to the patrons that made this video possible. Carl, Chingwe, Akuma Wokorie, Anwulika NC Okeke, Eric Mwozuzu, at Sack Alexander on Instagram, Eze Chijoke Njoku, Ikenga Nation on all platforms, Isioma Orihu, Jess Akun, Jonathan Randall, Joshua Stepney, Lena West, Mansa, Nikki, Nina Nwafia, Nek Onyise, Nena Yamochi, Nwaka, Oluchi Omeoga, Red Clay Roundup, Sessa Salam, Olama Obara, Tymel Jones, Kwasi Densu, Ikechukwu Obioha, Remy Dior Martin. I apologize, I forgot you on the last one. Adora, Chief, Chinyere Njokweri, Ememe, Gretchen Segers, Aikoke, Michael, Olise Emeka, Ocampo, Sheila, Sheena, Sharika Regina, Uche Abweze, Tochukwu Aochie, Tony Walker, and Uren Nakara. It was awesome seeing a lot of you guys in the last group study we had together. The discussion was phenomenal, so I'm looking forward to the upcoming one. Earlier in this video, I pointed out a very strange Igbo proverb, Mado amari na mmiri nwere ọkpụkpụ, mana mado anata mmiri ata, which is people don't know that water has bones because people don't chew water. To me, the reason it's important to understand Mo and Ala Mo is the reality of the unseen forces of the world are as influential and present as the seen ones. And understanding that gives you a more panoramic view in understanding what's going on around you and within you. You can look at it at any scale or through any lens, and it's a pretty consistent factor in life and reality. But on a personal level, a lot of us have this idea of who we are or the self, but we don't pay much attention to the self that looks at the self. There's you as a person, and then there's the self that determines what you as a person means. And that one is often outside of our observation, and as a result, out of our control. Part of us retains experience and is always observing us, but we often forget to observe it back, as both parts are equally you and would equally benefit from examination. So for example, you have you, and then you have the part of you that may judge you based on its own standard. You may want to be successful. There's a part of you that tells you what success is. And when you fall short of that idea, there's a lot of difficult feelings that come with it. And this is your self-observer judging yourself based on your self-observer's idea of success. But sometimes you need to do the reverse and look back at that part of you that holds the judgment and holds that idea and examine it. Is this idea completely yours? Or is it something somebody else poured into your cup? Why does that part of you believe that this is success or believe that this is what you want? Where did that belief come from? And what voice or tone do you use to speak about it to yourself? And if it's strange, so be it. Go ahead and do the strange thing and see yourself as two people. And then examine the conversation they're having with each other, being mindful of what you tell yourself and how you speak to yourself, about yourself. A big theme in a lot of my videos is following your chi. And I understand that it's difficult to identify that, or know which thoughts or inclinations are actually your chi, and which are things from the outside that were poured into you, or something that you synced with along the way a while back. Or maybe you're retaining an idea of yourself or what you stand for or what you want that you first latched onto when you were a different person, or when you knew less than what you know now. Once you take control and look into the self and the self-observer, it's easy to find answers, because that's where clarity begins. Sometimes it's good to do an audit or clean up what the moi has retained throughout your life, because these things will reflect back on you and ultimately control you. And if they're false or no longer hold themselves to be true or have some type of toxicity to them that has no real productive or truth-seeking value, they may weigh you down or make it harder to find your truth. I've personally held on to a lot of false ideas about myself and the world, and from them I led myself astray for many years. And it's only recently that I started achieving clarity, which came from looking into myself in a very strange way. And so to me, the proverb, Mado amari na mmiri nwere ọkpụkpụ, mana mado anata mmiri ata, or people don't know that water has bones because people don't chew water, means that we don't see what we don't examine. Or if you do the unusual thing, you'll get the unusual truth. I hope that made sense, but I highly doubt it did. But subscribe for more content. Take care.